Hey Luca, I appreciate you hopping on the call and just jamming back and forth on ads. Yeah, I guess give me a bit of background before we jump in, just so that everybody kind of understands where you're coming from. How do you get your start in the space?
Yeah. Yeah, and great to chat again. I
Yes.
got my start in ads. So basically um I kind of started doing ads around like 2016, and it kind of came from this desire to want to do something in the online space, and but I wasn't sure what it would be. And I grew up in a very kind of anti-marketing, anti-capitalism, anti-business home. So I just like didn't think. I mean, I had an idea of what it could be, but it wasn't like an immediate, oh, I'll for sure do this type of thing. And then what happened is I was mostly like always a creative guy, always making videos with my friends, owned a camera at 9 years old. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to be a filmmaker, which is something that like I still do, but I hadn't connected the fact that like advertising and filmmaking have similar overlaps. But I was like, okay, so I'm going to do some of that creative stuff. And I had my best friend had started a company because his dad was in leather and he was sort of starting this shoot off company with my girlfriend at the time, actually. And so they were like, okay, well, you can be the head of media and the head of basically marketing. So I was like, okay, cool. And so we were kind of doing that for a little bit. And then unfortunately, he like passed away one night. Like he's just like didn't wake up. And I was sort of left with this like, all right, what do I do now? I know I want to not work a job and I know I want to like keep being entrepreneurial, but I'm not quite sure what that looks like right now. And so I just was like, I found myself deep in the online info space, like trying to heal basically from how I was feeling. Like it was like I was recovering from that. And then my relationship ended, obviously. So I was like deep in this. What do I do personal development wise? I ended up buying a bunch of stuff. Like I bought stuff about exes, I bought stuff about mental health, I bought all these things. And that's when I discovered Facebook ads because I was like, how is this like appearing in my feed? And I thought, okay, well, if I could figure out how to run ads, maybe I could figure out how to make money. Because I really, when he passed away, my number one thought was like, I'm not rich enough to emotionally handle this. And like, obviously, they say, yeah, money doesn't buy happiness and all those things. But like, when you're faced, obviously, as I'm sure you know from life, it's like when you're faced with life stuff you can't control, it's nice to have some money because, you can just pick up and head out, or you can just, what do they call it? Uh, shop yourself into if you have to. And so that was sort of what sparked the like, okay, I got to figure out how to like make some money. And that brought me to Facebook ads.
Interesting, dude. So you've been in the space for quite a while, so you've probably seen a couple of the cycles throughout the industry. Because I know we work kind of in similar circles with similar people. How has the space changed?
Mhm.
I don't know if you've worked with the same sort of group of people since you got started, but let me know how much has changed since 2016 and like what are some things that people aren't yet really picking up on, but it's important to pick up on if they actually want to make their ads work going forward.
Yeah. I think like over the last, I guess, yeah, 10 years, a lot has changed. I think the two big things that have changed are it's more competitive and it's more expensive. Like in 2016, when I was running early ads, like you didn't see the big brands running ads. I remember having that thought. I'm like, it's not like Coca-Cola is putting ad spend into Facebook at least at any sort of large noticeable level. So everything was a little easier in terms of getting people's attention, in terms of getting people's attention cheap. But obviously, as more and more companies started to do paid social, it bumps prices up. They have the money to afford the large campaigns. They've got the copywriters. They've got all the big things that you would start to need to be able to compete at a big level. And so that's, I think, one of the big things that's changed over the years. I'd also say that, when I kind of got started, it was a lot in the dropship space, actually. So I was running my own stores, I was building my own Shopify's, I was doing all that, and that's sort of how I learned ads. And then it went into the info space, mostly like, either low ticket digital products or now Obviously, book a call funnels are were more popular, but I think what or they're just as popular as low ticket. But I think one of the hard parts for people is figuring out, yeah, how to stand out in an incredibly crowded space when so many people have the money to run ads and are running them. And what used to just be, okay, I'll put something up, I'll put up a landing page and I'll get opt-ins or I'll run an ad and it'll for sure work has gotten less and less. Like I even saw a post in one of the Facebook groups I'm in with a bunch of pretty like high level marketers. And someone said, they just launched an ad, it's getting clicks, but no one's opting in. What's wrong with the ad? Like, what's wrong? And it's like, well, yeah, you have to do so much more messaging now than just technically what you're able to set up. So I think those are the big things that have changed.
Yeah, I know that when I was kind of learning to run ads myself, there was so much emphasis because I feel like when people come into the ad space, they're like, oh, I just need to click the right buttons, set up all the tracking, and then everything is going to be good. But that's like 10% of what actually makes the ad work. Um, Especially now with, I guess, Facebook's algorithm, like
Mm,
AI wasn't really like a thing back in 2016 on Facebook. So like the targeting has probably changed a
a
lot.
lot. Yeah. Like at the beginning, or not even that it was the beginning, but because I think Facebook ads, I think might have started in 2007 or something like that, or maybe even 2005. So I was still coming in like 10 years after, but it's still like a new, obviously, ad platform. But it used to be about stacking interest targeting really intensely, right? It was like you've got to put moms that are also engaged shoppers that are also into this and into that and then you're got to come up with this very very niche. The smaller the audience the better, they would say, and then you would stack all of those interests with all these ad sets and then you'd have your success. Whereas now you'll see a lot more people going almost no interest at all, just totally broad target and saying, well, a small interest, let's say it's, people between the ages of 18 and 30 who live in the US, and then they let their creative do all the rest, knowing that, yeah, Facebook's Advantage Plus slash like AI is going to attempt to just optimize as much as possible.
Yeah, I've spent a few $1,000 on ads, and in 2021, me and my fiance also ran like a Shopify store. So when we're running ads, it was the same thing. It was like we're at the time still we had no clue, but we're just setting up interest and doing all this targeting stuff. But then I ran it for like my like sort of agency offer, and I was like looking at my campaigns, and I was shocked to see that the basically open targeting was just like beating everything. Like even the lookalike audiences, I mean, not on one of the campaigns, but on another, even the lookalike audiences didn't compete with
Mhm.
open. So it just shows how good Facebook has gotten with it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So when it comes to actually setting up creative, I know you said like, gaining attention. I guess what's your opinion when it comes to all these marketers that run the classic, like, very direct, hardcore promise offer, like, whatever, we'll book you like 100 calls guaranteed or you don't pay. Like,
Mhm.
does that actually work on the back end in your experience? Have you tested it, or do you have like a message to these marketers? Maybe there's a lot of bias coming from you right now, but
Yeah. It's like, I mean, it's one of those things where a message gets eaten up really intense. Like if you have the Charlie Morgan spend of, yeah, like let's fill your calendar, let's do all that stuff. I mean, he's spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. Sure, it works. If you've got a big enough personal brand and you've been really pushing a message for quite a while, or you've come up with a totally unique angle and you were the first one to really do it. Now people are copying you, which I see still. I mean, which is nuts. I have a whole, I guess I could say a whole thing on that, but like, you like follow someone, they come up with their original angle, and then all these people literally almost word for word offer. And sure, people are, because there's billions of people in the world, they're obviously going to take a piece of that pie. And then obviously I go into the back end of like the mastermind I'm paying for and they're in it. And I'm like, what? How do you sleep, like live with yourself? Literally, you're just joining a program. All right, I'm going to take this exact person's offer word for word. But that's, I guess, an aside. But yeah, I think that when it comes to coming, it does work, yeah, to say, oh, okay, you're going to book all these calls, whatever. But I think you're putting yourself a bit at a risk. It's not very unique messaging. And I think that's what creative is demanding much more of. So I've been definitely spending more time with myself and with clients and like in my own study of this space more and more like what does it take to come up with something unique, and how do you say something that feels authentic to you? It's like, sure, part of what I like me talking to myself now personally, part of what I do is I can fill your calendar. Like I'm working with a client right now. We're running a book a call funnel, but like, is that the messaging that I feel good about and the thing I want to plant my flag in and say, like, I'll fill your calendar? Not really. Because I also fundamentally don't believe that a full calendar is like the end all and be all of business success, or again a message that I want to back full, so I think when it comes to coming up with your messaging, it's that perfect balance of like what is the market, what will they respond to, and what pain points are you hitting, but also like what really aligns with you, knowing that in any given offer there's probably at least 100 angles that you could present around.
Yeah, I think the tough part is people take the easy path, and I'll admit, I mean, like I've run those similar ads because I was advised to, and it's because you're so direct, you just almost assume people are just be like, yeah, let me just do it, and it feels like it's going to be the best use of your ad spend because it is scary sometimes to like put money behind ads, be like, I don't even know if it's going to work. I don't know if I'm just going to end up wasting a bunch of money. Um, like I guess going down that thread, like, is there anything when you do start working with new clients when it comes to sort of whether they've run ads in the past before or not, what sort of, I guess, quote unquote, SOPs do you bring to the table where you're like, okay, like, I don't care what last person told you to do, or if you're just getting started, like, here are the absolute things that we need to do to get started to actually get successful.
Yeah. The biggest thing that comes to mind, other than like looking at past data, if they have run ads and figuring out, okay, this clearly worked, or this is why this did not work, is their retargeting strategy. Like, because it's cheap, it's the cheapest thing you can do. It's not like cheap, 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 but it's cheaper than cold traffic. And a lot of people just aren't using it to the best of their ability. I was in an account the other day. I'm starting something. It's like, yeah, they had a couple custom audiences, like maybe their Instagram page, which is good, but they hadn't used it. Like I could see they hadn't run it in an ad in almost 2 years. And this is like a big account, hundreds of thousands of followers. And so that's just traffic that isn't being utilized. Like I think when people think, oh, I'm going to run ads, I have to go after a cold market. And sure, but also you don't. Like you could literally just run ads to people who have just even been to your Facebook page because or your Instagram account even. Like we know that people they'll go to an Instagram account, right, and maybe follow you, maybe not. Um, and you can retarget all of those people. And it's cheaper. So those are the big things that I would say. And then the other part is like, are you running ads at the best place in your funnel? Because there could be, for instance, just like I'll ask people when I'll start, like, what is the most important metric to you right now? Is it emails? Is it phone calls? Is it quote sent? In some industries, is it calls on the calendar? Is it purchase of a low ticket? Is it or a close of a high ticket, whatever, right? And then we can work backwards from there to say, okay, well, this is your end goal. So let's put an ad. Maybe it's too expensive to run book a call. So that's fine if you have a lower ad budget. Let's focus on just increased exposure or building your list. Like some people have a list that's converting great. So let's just get more people on your email list. It's going to be cheaper. And also, you can nurture them a lot longer than you can in an ad.
I like that you went there. I've never even thought about that from an ad perspective, is to focus on retargeting first, but that's actually super smart. So, okay, if someone has like, because the data set is going to be big enough for someone with hundreds of thousands of followers, what if someone, because I know there's some companies are, I mean, I guess it's kind of an unfair question because they do have the data, but some companies are looking to get started basically solely on paid. Like they don't really do much on organic. Like, have you had instances like that? Or what if you just don't even have a big following or like large
Yeah.
volumes of traffic?
I got a couple. things that are done for people. One, it's like if you don't have a large following, or yeah, it's just going totally cold. I still think collecting engagement is valuable. So like views, comments, likes, profile visits of whatever account you're trying to build, because then you're at least building your retargeting list. On the side of that, though, I would say it's good to probably if you're in the, if you most people I think building some kind of list then in that regard would be the best, like just collecting emails, either selling something low ticket or doing a classic lead magnet, because then it's kind of best of both worlds. You can always follow up with them later, as you know, through email or through ads. But you're not going for the most expensive conversion, which would be trying to get someone to watch a VSL and book a call right away. It can work, but the more money you have to test that, the better, in my experience. Um, and I also think it's industry dependent, of course, too, right? Because it's like, sometimes e-com stores will still reach out to me because I do have that experience too. And yeah, of course, they should try to go right for sales. They should. They want like that's the big thing they're trying to do. But I think a lot of people get into dropship and they get into e-com and it's like 10 times more expensive than they think it's going to be. So I'd say, understanding the business model that you're in and like understanding like how much ad spend you're probably going to need to get where you're going is important. But if you don't have a lot, that's why I say like focus. Just getting video views. Like try to get some comments. Like run a many chat campaign. Like get some DMs in there, especially if you're a personal brand. Messaging campaigns, DM campaigns, like that stuff is not only cheap, but it's like highly effective if you're also making content.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's fascinating. I think I like your methodology around just in general using what you have, like that whole philosophy, it's because you come from sort of the acquisition top of funnel realm of marketing. Because for me, I was mostly dealing with like middle funnel, bottom funnel.
Hmm.
And that was the biggest issue is like I would work with these business owners that like didn't really have middle funnel. They just were like, we're only acquiring customers and that's it. Like that's all we're focusing on. And then frankly, a lot some of these businesses just went under because like you can't sustain that. Like and like you mentioned, it's optimizing the cheapest conversion at a certain point where you can just like follow up with people as well.
Yeah.
Like I know we've chatted about this offline together, but I have my own take on sort of why the coaching consulting space. I feel like everyone's feeling it. So it's gone through a bit of a shift over the last
Yeah.
4, 5, 6 months. I guess like from your perspective, from an acquisition side, what's your take? What's your hypothesis?
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely I want to loop into what you think too. I mean, well, actually, maybe you go first. I'd love to hear what what are you thinking? Then it'll guide my.
So for me, I think people are running with the 2017, 2018, like the sort of Sam Ovens model of like growth, which is just like just run as much, run paid advertising, go volume, massive volume, and just don't stop. Like, and like I said, a lot of the business owners I ended up working with didn't really have a middle funnel. It's like call booking funnel that they ran ads to, and that's pretty much it. People booked a call, you're trying to hard close them, and that's it. If they don't close, then these leads might as well be lost. Like there's just wasted money. So I think the volume, and I just spoke to someone about this. I think the focus on volume is what started stifling a lot of people. A, it's exhausting, so it probably burned a bunch of people out. B, it's not sustainable on a business side. Like you alluded to earlier, sometimes booking the call isn't the metric you should be focusing on or optimizing for because the business can't handle it. So a lot of business owners have businesses that's like a water bucket full of holes. They're just like, let me just keep pouring water in this thing and eventually I'll make more money. But like your operations suck, your onboarding sucks, your actual product is not good.
Yeah.
So you're just trying to fill something that's not working. So that's my take on it is just like burnout and volume. And it's just so unsustainable that, especially I don't know if the world's in a recession or not. I feel like we've been talking about a recession for the last 4 years now,
I
but it's
know,
like
seriously.
if that's exactly like, and especially in the high ticket space, if people stop buying, your strategy of let me just spend more money on ads is not going to work.
Totally.
That's
And
my take.
I've seen 100%. I agree with that. And like, even from the people who are big, who have like, reached the multi-million months. I was listening to a guy the other day, and he was talking about this trust recession element and like how much more challenging it is to get people to spend high ticket on a totally cold call. Like people are still doing it for sure, and I've been at the back of a couple of offers lately, that are between $4,000 and $10,000, and yeah, they're running people to a call and they are closing people, but it is harder, in term, and it's more expensive. So one thing people are doing is integrating some low ticket, and I think you and I were talking about this as well. It's like we've got this low ticket high ticket war that's been going on for like a decade. But the end of the day, any person who's making any kind of serious money online is running both high ticket and low ticket. And that's just so anytime people are like, oh, it's low ticket sucks because of this or high ticket sucks because of this, it's like they're just trying to frame you on what they're trying to push, but ultimately both are, we need both right now. Like you need whether it's through going to a cold audience and selling something for under $100, or it's the workshop method where you are doing something live every once in a while, that's paid or that's free, and then funneling people into something else, or you just shoot something to your list every quarter and you've packaged up something that you've made and you sold that, because then when people make that chain, like that exchange, they're like, oh, they've already spent some money with you. And this whole thing that we're talking about right now of like building a list of buyers and how that's even better than just like a list of like regular leads, right? And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I think all that stuff is going on, but we still see that mentality. Sometimes people are like, oh, am I gonna, like, I was talking to a client the other day and I was like, okay, well, we should really sell something a little small. And she's like, but is the person who's gonna buy something small really gonna buy something big? I'm like, yeah, honestly, they will.
Yeah.
It's like I've
Yeah.
even done that. It's plenty of times. And there's people who every time they launch something, I basically buy it. I've spent like I can't even like tell you. With some of online people, it's like I just see something in my feed, they've dropped a new book, I'll buy it. Or they're like, hey, you go to their highest level thing, they're like, this is 50 grand. I'm like, okay, cool, let's do it.
Mhm.
You know?
I, yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you
No,
off.
no. So yeah, like
Yeah, I think the way I see it is that, yeah, I hate when people create these wars because like everything works. You just got to find what works for you. But like the beauty about low ticket is the strengths of it make up for the weakness of high ticket. And
Mhm.
then, the weakness of low ticket is made up by the strengths of the high ticket. So it's like they balance each other out in the long term. But yeah, like I 100% agree. I don't know. I feel like this might be obvious to both of us, but not to everyone else, is that the fact that there's like a ladder, especially now people do want almost a trial, even if it's a paid trial, like just something cheaper to see results because you want to get micro commitments. And this is what I talk about
Mhm.
with some of my clients too, is like it doesn't matter. Even if you get them to spend $1, they're all of a sudden going to be way more open to spending $97 with you now. So they'll spend $97. Now they're going to be a lot more open to spending $497. And then you just
Mhm.
climb that ladder and you don't have to do it so sequentially, but like it's just it's creating those micro commitments of it's like the oldest concept of just stacking yeses. Like
Yep.
you just stack those
100%.
yeses and people are just gonna be like, okay, cool. And like you said, I'm the same exact buyer. It's like usually I'll just follow someone for a long while if they have something low take it, I'll buy it. And then eventually it's just like I'll hop on a sales call. I'll be like, I'm basically ready to go. Like I'm just here to
Mhm.
talk to you so I can exchange my card information. I'm not even here to like go through the sales process. So I think that's just where the sales cycles are leading to is they're just getting longer, but some
Yeah.
people just can't stomach it.
They are, and they're also, I love that you said it doesn't have to be sequential, because when we talk about changes in the industry, that's been one of the largest changes I'd say as well, is that understanding. Because if you remember, like a few years ago, like kind of 2018, 2019, it was all about the value ladder. Like you had to put people through the value ladder, and everyone's like, but no, not everyone buys that way anymore. Like you can still have your funnel, which is like, let's say a 7 and then a 27 and a 97, and like you can have your upsell funnel, but in and of itself, people don't need to go through that to buy high ticket, and they don't, like, it's a very, and they, just because they bought your high ticket doesn't mean they won't also go through that, and people, because people are finding out about people in so many different ways now, right? It's like you hear them on a podcast and you watch, and that's why, another reason why people, when we talk about people when people have YouTube channels and which I know is something I've seen you talk about too, they're like those people are the best like in terms of the getting on the call. When you're a YouTube person and you get on a sales call, they're like those are my easiest closes. And the reason they're the easiest closes is because of the just the medium that is YouTube consumption.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
you can create that environment on Instagram too, but like I think still people would say that if someone has an Instagram and a YouTube, that their YouTube leads are like convert at a higher rate.
Yeah, 100%. Long form is just working so much better now because it takes a lot more effort to actually produce it, and you know what you're talking about if you can create long form content. I think especially with everything you say, like there's a massive importance on being able to track this. Again, going back to like 2016, 2017, 2018, you could put up an ad and not track anything, and like you start getting leads. You're like, okay, sick, like we're
Mhm.
rolling in the riches. But now there's so much more intentionality when it comes to even with retargeting. Like you can't do that without tracking certain things. So how do you go about tracking on sort of the acquisition side of things?
Mhm. I think like, well, I had I've known that Facebook's attribution has been not top notch for a while, like in terms of the data that you're actually looking at. Like I do use it with a lot of clients and because that's all people really have access to is the Facebook ad data. But I launched a low ticket, like I just wrote a little ebook, called the retargeting cheat code. And I was like, I'm going to run this and see on the ads. And I was like, okay, after I spend this much, if I make no sales, I'll basically turn it off. And so like every day I'm checking and I'm tweaking and things are getting better and better, but I'm still like, okay, like people aren't buying it. And then so like on the fourth day or something, I was like, I checked the ads manager and I was like, okay, gonna turn this off. I'm gonna go back to the drawing board. And then I checked my Stripe account and it made a sale, but it didn't show. And I was like, okay, I've officially converted to the like Facebook ads tracking sucks. We can use it obviously if we have to, and let's work with it the best we can. But how do we bring in some other systems, and how do we like have fuller visibility across all sides of it, whether it's using certain platforms and like there are ones that I'm exploring right now. I'm also doing like a big high row setup for someone in a book haul funnel. Like, and for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's like an advanced tracking software made by this guy Alex Becker, who's like really big in the info space, and just generally the business space too. But one of the reasons is because and I was thinking about this and then I saw information that just like doubled down on that is when you're optimizing for, let's say, like a lot of people who are running a book call funnel, they're like, it's a cost per lead thing or it's a cost per click thing. When really from a tracking perspective, it's really a cost per close thing. And you can't do that with a Facebook ad. Like we've been running
Mhm.
Facebook ads basically like and optimizing for those, which is fine. But it's we're at a deeper place with like technology now and through things like AI and these advanced tracking things where you can't because like if you think about how a Facebook ad works, really the end of the Facebook ad funnel is after someone has filled out the book a call, and then it would go into another system, and then maybe yet another system to actually collect payment. So, and so those are all things that you would just basically have to do manually, which is slightly different than selling like a product where you're like, okay, this is the sale and it's coming through. But even though that is wrong sometimes, because like I'll run ads. Let's say I was running ads for a dog brand a few months ago, and sure, Facebook saying this came in, these sales and whatever. But when you look at the back end of the Shopify, half of the sales are coming through what's called direct session by traffic source, which is someone literally typing in the URL to a browser, which means people are seeing ads. They're like looking at them, but we can collect that in retargeting. But then they're opening their Safari or they're opening their Chrome or they're going to their desktop and they're typing it in. They're like, oh, remember this. And like those things Facebook doesn't do that connection. And so I
Mm.
think the next phase of online ads, especially when we saw that change with iOS 14, where people started, opting out of cookies and it changed how we were allowed to track people. We're seeing all these new inventions when it comes to how to actually like attribute. And I don't think there's 100% attribution. People claim that it's impossible to have 100%, but I think we can do better than we're doing,
Yeah.
you know? And that
Hmm.
allows you then to make better decisions and to really see what you're spending and what you're making. And it becomes even more challenging, I think, for businesses that aren't online adept, because it's like if you're familiar with online business and these things, you kind of understand some of this stuff. But I'm working with a service-based company right now, and I was explaining to him because he's like, okay, well, how much are we spending on ads, and like, what should our cost per leads be, and what should all these things be? I'm like, all right, well, where's your sales data? It's like, what did you close? And that is just like, I don't know, people paying cash. They do here. We got Stripe here, QuickBooks here. And it's like, well, then we're never really going to know, are we? We're never going to know if the money you're putting into Facebook and Google is bringing quality, is bringing large deals. Like, we don't know,
Hmm.
So I think
Yeah,
that's,
that's really good. I've run into a couple business owners, even in the online space, that are still so obsessed with cost per lead. They're like, I just want the cheapest lead possible. It's
yeah.
almost like a badge of honor. But I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. But then, you're getting crap calls and you're not closing anybody. So it's like, sure, you can post about that on your Facebook or your social medias, but like your business ain't growing. So I like now, especially always preface, and like people are usually like, oh, yeah, yeah, like I 100% agree. But it's like, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's not common practice isn't always, or common knowledge or whatever, that common sense isn't always common practice, where I would much rather pay a little bit more for a lead if it means that we're actually acquiring people like at a lower cost than paying cheap leads and not acquiring anybody.
Yeah, Sam Oven said at one point, like this would have been back in like, pre 2020, but he said at one point they were paying $250 per lead for
Wow.
Consulting Accelerator, which was a 1999 program. But he was cool with that because he was like, I would rather pay that knowing that 50% of people are going to go to up level, which is 5,000, and maybe 20% of people are going to go to quantum, which is 40,000. And like, and this is a list he owns for life. I know obviously he sold it, but like that that just to your point, like that the cheapest cost per lead isn't necessarily where we should be going.
Hmm. Yeah, it's probably gonna be some like freaking grandma scrolling on her social media that's just like clicking on every meme, clicking on every video that she can, so she ain't ever gonna buy with her social security money. But yeah,
Exactly.
dude.
That's a
Um,
real, actually, that like yeah, we could go on a whole thing about that too. Like people opting in, especially in biz op, which is the most
mhm,
when it's like you get a lot of that. People looking for, they're like, oh, this isn't a job, or like, oh, I'm like, yeah, I'm on Social Security. Like, just, yeah. So it's 100%.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like I could also talk about some of the gripes on that side, because I feel like the high ticket space is almost appeased a little bit too much. Like speaking of cost per leads, like I think because people are trying to shoot for the lowest possible lead cost, they're bringing all these financing companies into their business where it's like, yeah, dude, just pay like $10 for a course and then pay it off later. And I just heard apparently that Klarna added their payment stuff to DoorDash. Have you heard of
Wow.
that?
No, but
Yeah.
like,
It's like, imagine having to like order your food online, but you like pay a little bit now and pay it off later. Like, it's just, I don't know. We don't have to dive deep into this, but it's just like, I think that's just where we've also gone in the high ticket space. And I just thoroughly disagree with it. Like, you got to be a better advertiser and marketer to avoid that. Like, you
yeah,
shouldn't have to be appeasing people like that, or taking them in the first
100%.
place.
100%. I want to see that really actually die. That's a whole other chat too. But like,
Hmm.
I like high pressure sales. Like, if that's something that you're sort of alluding to there in some ways, like I think this idea of get anyone on any payment plan type of thing is just not in anyone's best interest. Like, as someone who's like felt very pushed into that stuff in the past, it's like I get it, but also it has to be the right time for the right person in the right way. And like I think we need more respect as an industry for that truth. And we've seen what happens when like people don't consider that, and now we see these big turnarounds, like with traffic and funnels, and or like the wealthy consultant now with like Taylor, and also where like Chris has taken it since that dissolve, is that not that they're fully responsible for that industry and all those things happening, but recognizing, yeah, mass scale at all costs. um, Even if 50% of the people are happy they jumped and you will eventually end up with people complaining to the point where it's not good for anyone.
Yeah.
And so yeah, even now he says like, he's like, we won't just like close anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm inside of some of Taylor's circle. So I can tell you offline because he mentions this story multiple times in different podcasts, but it's just like, yeah, there's a messed up situation that happened to them where they theoretically shouldn't got hit by the FTC, but they did. But to go to your point, like, yeah, I've worked with a couple eight-figure businesses where I'd go into their back end of sales and I would just like start seeing these like $10, $20 transactions. I was like, I know you guys aren't running low ticket stuff. Like, what? And I would go to them and like, what is that? And one person was like, oh yeah, it's the deposits that we're collecting after calls. Someone's like, for what? Like for your
Yeah.
$10,000 program, you're collecting 10, $20. Like it's just asinine. But
Yeah. That's great.
yeah, without getting into the rant, yeah, dude, I appreciate you
Yeah,
hopping on for
for sure.
a quick like wrap up.
Yeah.
Again, I want to almost like if someone's I know there's two different people here, but like if someone's that's looking to get into ads or someone that's running ads but it's just not working, like I guess what are one or two pieces of advice that you'd give them to like look into right now? Or maybe it's
Mhm.
a change of mindset, change of tactics, whatever it is to change it around and to actually like
Mhm.
market effectively.
Yeah. I'm a huge proponent right now of, and I just think in general of link click through rate. I think is one of the most
Mm-hmm.
under looked at stats. Like people in market, I think generally look, but like it actually tells you a lot. Because if you change up your columns and you see that the link, the click through rate will say all clicks. That's going to be the likes. It's going to be all your engagement. It's going to be people hitting see more. It's going to be people going to your check out your profile, which is good. But if you're running people to an external link, let's say to sell an offer, to get people into a VSL, all those things, then you want to look at the link click through rate particularly. And that number, make as high as humanly possible. That number should be as high as humanly possible. Like anything under 3%, you have a lot of room to play with in terms of making creative that is people like more. After you get above 3 or even above 1%, if if you're still not getting what you want, then start focusing on your landing page and then jostle back and forth. But there's no point to like go hard on the landing page if your ads aren't even really getting engagement or
Mm-hmm.
and click. So that'd be the like if you're feeling kind of stuck, those would be the things that I would look at because what'll end up happening is if you put more money into ads that aren't getting at the very least a 1% click through rate or specifically link click through rate, you're going to spend like 3 times as much trying to scale that up than you would if you had creative. Like you just want that creative to be as good as humanly possible. um, and then obviously, yeah, then if you're in a situation where they're getting clicked a lot, but no one is buying or they're not buying enough, then yeah, it's like let's work on the offer, let's work on the message, let's work on the page. There's something else going on
Mm-hmm.
outside of that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What's the quick question for clarification? Because I
Yeah.
know there's link click through rate, but there's outbound, like
Oh yeah.
the click through. What's the difference between those two?
So out, yeah, like that's true. I guess because like you could put sometimes, like let's say you're running a DM ad and it'll say underneath send message. That'll count as a link click through rate. But outbound specific outbound will mean it's just a double make sure like, okay, this is specifically going off platform. Because
Okay,
sometimes you might have a link and it'll count as a link click through rate, but maybe it's like staying in platform, which does happen. Sometimes people run ads like that.
got it.
So yeah, like that's an also a great one to look at too. And like when I'll go into back end and like look at columns, people will. It's good to see that they'll at least looking at that. Because and again, another thing I'll say, like if you don't have a Facebook advertiser, learn how to change the columns
Yeah,
because that's like a big yeah. There's so many options, and mostly people are just looking at you know they're looking at just like whatever Facebook is showing them, which isn't everything.
yeah. Okay, love it. So track, link, click-through rates to get a better picture of whether your ads are working or not, and then just understand the distinction between is the ad the bottleneck or the post ad, like the funnel is the bottleneck.
Yes. So you can really optimize for the right thing. And that's why they say like, you can't outspend a bad ad. That's been a long term saying just in the terms of like if it's not working, more money won't do it.
Yep.
So my usual benchmark is if 100 people have been to a landing page and no one's done anything, definitely work on the landing page. Um, and if you spent the amount of what you're selling, it depends on how much it is, but like, you know, if your product is like $20, I would spend like 10 times what that is. But if your product's 1,000 and you can't get one person for 1,000, then that's another chance to be like, okay, what do we need to do? Like,
Hmm.
where in the funnel is not working.
Interesting. Awesome, dude. Appreciate you. Where can people
Yeah.
learn more from you, find out more about you?
Dope. Yeah. Facebook, my name, Luca Rosenberg Lee. And then add me. Feel free to shoot me a message. And I'm on Instagram too. Luca on Biz. I just started a new Instagram that I'm like running some tests on.
Nice,
Um,
dude.
yeah. I just put a little post on that I ran a reel to see, okay, how many views could I get for cheap? I spent like $40 and got almost like, I got like 45,000 views on it. So I
Wow.
felt pretty good on that.
Nice.
But
Cool,
yeah,
dude.
feel free to any of those. This has been great, man.
Amazing. Yeah, this was amazing, super valuable. I appreciate you for coming on. And yeah, dude, we'll chat
You
soon
too.
again.
Perfect.